look, they're one result away from being an absolute disaster. They play Southampton today. And, OK, you'd expect normal service will be resumed there at Stamford Bridge. They'll beat Southampton. But Graham Potter is coming out with these lines and, look at their goals for column, not just over the course of a season, but look in recent weeks, look over 14 games, 7 games. The numbers are awful. No one is scoring. This isn't just a centre-forward problem. This is a midfield problem. This is a defender's problem. If you look at the central midfield, which is Conor Gallagher's played, he's got 1 goal this season. Obviously, N'Golo Kante's been injured all year. Then you've got Jorginho. He had 2 before he went to Arsenal, but they were 2 penalties. Kovacic has not been scoring regularly. You just look at all their midfield. Mason Mount's got 3 this year. At the same time last year, now he had 6. He had double the number. That's the common theme in the whole Chelsea team, whether it's fullbacks, centre-halves or midfielders and centre-forwards. So the problem is really through the squad. And you can say, well, we had golden opportunities, because they did. They had loads of our chances. João Felix had a good few, didn't finish them. But that's the common theme of the whole team during the course of 2022-23 season for me.
Yeah, they outshot Borussia Dortmund in the game, but ultimately it was the 1 goal that was settled in this match, and it was Dortmund that won it. But just to pick up on what you're saying with the fact that you can't necessarily just solely put it all on Kai Havertz, for example, who, as we know, has been preferred as the number 9 now for Chelsea. The players within that Chelsea lineup, even at Dortmund, for example, now maybe we can still suggest that Mudryk is a player that's still coming to terms with his new club. But likewise, João Felix, perhaps. But you've got also Ziyech, who's now, obviously, as we know, being reintegrated as it looked as though he was heading out. Fernandes, like you've already mentioned. You've got Chilwell and James, who have often contributed as well. But it's just not clicking at the moment. And how can Graham Potter get it working?
Well, he's never been a manager that's had a goal-seeking team. He's not a manager that you go, well, his team are going to average 2-3 goals a game. He's not. He's a manager that's been quite cautious in his style. And that's what you see with Chelsea.
But the stats don't suggest that. 21 shots they had to 14 for Dortmund, 8 on target, 2 to Dortmund on target. So it shows that they are pushing, they're going forward, they're creating, just can't put it in the back of the net.
But that's like saying you get loads of corners but you don't score from them. If you get loads of corners, you get 20 corners and you don't score, then you're not very good at set pieces. So if you're creating loads of chances and you're not finishing them, it's not just a centre-forward problem. It's a whole team problem. Yeah. And that's where I have, the stats will tell you, yes, they're creating and creating. That tells you a lot of Chelsea's season. But one stat that's missing is the goals column, which is dreadful. And it is a whole team problem. This is not just a centre forward. Of course, you would love to say, oh, I don't know, Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, or, of course they'd contribute and add to the goals column. But as a team, they don't have a goal-scoring team. And that comes down to the style. Now, he now is in a position because, like you said, Fernandes has come in, Mudryk has come in. They've got João Felix on loan. They've got a number of players that are going to improve and create more. But will the team score more? As we're seeing, where's the last 14 games, Nat? Is it like 7 goals or something like that? As low as that?
They have scored 5 in
5
the last 14.
in 14?
In all tournaments, yeah.
That is longer than that's not just a. Normally, when you look at stats, you can short term they can be exaggerated, but if you start stretching it out and it's still the same theme, if you go the whole of the season, what's Graham Potter had now? 24 games, 25 games,
something like that. Yeah.
So if you look at that number, and I'm pretty sure it's less than a goal in a game, so the number tells you that this isn't a 2, 3, 4 game problem. This is a 25 game problem of this season.
23 goals they've scored in general in the Premier League.
Well, it's less than a goal a game then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, ish. 23 goals. That's in the top. I'm talking about the top 10. They are by some way the lowest scorers in the top 10. The next, let's say, lowest scorers in the league, top 10 upwards, would be Fulham on 34. So they've scored 11 more goals than Chelsea. There's so much more for us to talk about with Chelsea, I'm sure. But just lastly on it, you're talking about the massive problem then that Graham Potter has. And we know at Brighton, they were a very creative side, but really struggled to put it in the back of the net. And we've seen now Roberto De Zerbi come in and he's really added that clinical finish to Brighton that perhaps they were lacking previously.
Well,
I don't know how you get more out of this team when they've got such creative players in there.
Well, that's such an easy answer for me.
Go on.
Well, take Solly March.
Yeah.
Brighton. Why did he have such a dreadful record? And now you're seeing him play in a role at Brighton where he's getting in positions that he scores goals. What was Raheem Sterling doing at City? Why did he get 20-plus goals? Because he was told to get in certain position when the ball was on the other side, you get in and become like nearly in the centre-forward role or at the far post area where you'll have simple tap-ins.
So Potter's not telling them to do that?
Well, no.
At Chelsea?
So he's not telling them. It's just that players are not... You know, you're doing a formation and then you're doing set pieces and you're doing everything in the game to get goals. And bodies in boxes score goals. So you have to be in positions where, funny enough, some of the best goal scorers I ever played with happened to be standing when the ball dropped to them. Okay, and they were clinical. But if you're standing, like I've watched Solly March for years. I've always had an admiration for him because I think he's a really good player and I could never get why he didn't score enough goals. Then I started thinking, well, he's never really in the position enough to get enough goals. Now, this season, is it a coincidence that he's scoring far more under De Zerbi's Brighton than Potter's? So, you know, Trossard is another player that got lots of goals. And yes, Graham Potter had him an early part of the season. But he looked like he improved as he's left the club. You know, I see a team that creates a lot, but generally they lack bodies in areas to get goals from all positions, not just midfielders, fullbacks, wingbacks, wingers. You need to get all these players in position to get goals regularly.